Hey guys, tonight we're setting sail, not on calm waters, but into the roaring salt spray of legend. You're stepping barefoot onto the deck of a creaking wooden ship. The air tastes of brine and smoke. The sails groan overhead. Your shirt clings to your back, damp from mist or fear, you can't quite tell. Around you, boots thud on planks, gulls scream above the rigging, and voices call out in languages tangled by the sea. But there's one thing that glints across every face you pass. Earrings. Tiny gold hoops, thick silver studs, some crusted with gems, others plain as a wedding band. And if you think they're just for decoration, think again. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the bow of a pirate ship in the mid-1700s. The Caribbean sun hits hard, and the sea glistens like it's hoarding secrets. Your shipmates, rough-spoken, tanned, scarred, are preparing for landfall or battle or both. But one thing catches your eye. Nearly all of them wear earrings. Not just a few men, not just the flamboyant ones. Everyone from the youngest powder monkey to the grizzled old quartermaster sports something dangling from an earlobe. Why? Some say it's luck. Others claim it's about balance. But the truth, as it often is with pirates, is messier, more tangled, more human. See, sailors were a superstitious bunch. They believed in omens, signs, rituals. A gold earring was more than an accessory, it was a talisman, a way to keep death at bay. Some believed it would protect them from drowning, that the precious metal worn close to the brain would keep them safe in stormy seas. It didn't matter that this made no anatomical sense. Logic, when you're facing 30-foot waves, is less comforting than superstition. And then there's the origin theory that starts not on a ship, but in a church. In parts of Europe, young boys who survived a serious illness or accident were pierced by their parents as a token of gratitude to God. That piercing followed them into adulthood, especially for boys who later ran off to sea. It became a reminder, a scar of survival turned into status. You might also hear whispers, salty, half-sung tales about earrings improving vision. Yes, really. Some pirates believed that pressing gold against pressure points in the ear helped sharpen eyesight. Historians still argue whether that belief came from old Chinese acupuncture traditions or whether it was just another myth swirling in the rum-slicked minds of exhausted sailors. But gold always had weight, not just physically, but symbolically. Some pirates wore heavy earrings to flaunt their success, to say without saying a word, "I've taken treasure, and I kept a peace." And some had darker reasons. You pass a man leaning against the mast. His earring is thicker than the others and engraved with strange symbols. He's staring out to sea, but not looking at anything. That earring? It's not just decoration. It's insurance. See, one deeply rooted superstition was that if a sailor's body washed ashore, the gold earring could pay for a proper burial. The earring wasn't for the wearer. It was for the finder, a final bribe, a way to avoid a pauper's grave in some foreign port. You glance around. Some men have both ears pierced, others only one. The left ear especially was favored. It was the side said to connect to the heart. So, if you wanted to protect your soul as well as your life, that's where the earring went. And the earrings themselves? Tiny marvels. some carved with skulls, others inlaid with emerald chips. One sailor wears a tiny compass charm hanging from his hoop. Another has what looks like a shark's tooth dipped in silver. These are not mass-produced trinkets. They're stories. They're memories, worn in plain sight. But be careful. Ask too many questions, and you might end up with more than you bargained for. One pirate, legend says, had his earring made from the gold tooth of a Spanish officer he'd killed in a duel. Another claimed his gem-studded hoop came from a cursed treasure chest buried on a haunted atoll. Do we believe them? Maybe not. But remember the parrot on the shoulder, the peg leg, the eye patch? All things that have a grain of truth but became legend when polished by the waves. Earrings were no different. They were part utility, part theater, a way to signal identity without saying a word. And they weren't just for men. Some accounts mention female pirates, Anne Bonny, Mary Ridd, fierce and fearless and, yes, often pierced. For them, the earring may have meant even more, not just luck or superstition, but defiance. A way to say, I claim this space. I write my own code. As you lean against the ship's rail, a breeze catches you. As you lean against the ship's rail, a breeze catches your hair. You notice the glint of your own earring in the brass plate by the helm. It winks at you, just once. You wonder what it means now that you're part of this story. Because on the high seas, nothing was ever just what it seemed. That little piece of metal, it was a charm, a promise, a dare, a whisper from the deep. Survive and be remembered. The wind sharpens, the deck creaks beneath your boots. Somewhere overhead, the mainsail flaps like an angry gull. You've made it past the first squall of pirate superstitions, but now you're entering stranger waters. You're standing near the quarterdeck now, watching as a game of dice ends in a quiet argument. A small pile of copper coins clinks back into someone's hand. And you notice again, every man here pierced. But not just pierced, decorated, personalized, as if each earring were a passport, a name tag, a warning. That's the thing about pirate culture. It didn't come from one place. It was cobbled together. A patchwork of beliefs, customs, and folklore carried across oceans. And while earrings had practical and symbolic purposes, they also became something else, markers of identity. You see, aboard most naval ships, strict rules applied. Uniforms, rank, obedience. But pirates? Pirates created their own code, and part of that was how they looked, how they presented themselves. Earrings became a statement, not just of survival, but of rebellion. And in some crews, they were also a sign of loyalty. It said that certain pirate captains gave earrings to their most trusted men. Not payment. Plenty of gold floated around, but recognition. A kind of club pin, worn not on the lapel but in flesh. You pass a man sharpening a knife, slow, steady. His earring is shaped like a tiny anchor. Another near the cannon has a dangling gold hoop carved with the letter J, an initial question mark, a name, or maybe a reminder of someone lost. Because pirates didn't just wear earrings for themselves. Some wore them for the dead. It was common, especially among those who'd lost a brother, a lover, a friend to the sea, to carry a piece of them, literally. A bit of hair braided into the hoop, a drop of ash sealed inside a tiny vial, a token worn close to the face, because that's where memory hurts most. Historians still argue whether these traditions were widespread or isolated. Was it a trend, a ritual, or simply the kind of myth that flourishes when records are few and the truth gets tangled in the rigging? But the belief Ah, the belief was strong. One 18th century account even claims that a man refused to remove his earring after a tavern brawl, shouting that it held his sister's last breath. Was it true? Maybe. Was it real to him? Absolutely. You find yourself near the galley now. The cook, sweat on his brow, chops onions with a speed that's almost suspicious. He's got 3 earrings, 2 in one ear, 1 in the other. A sailor tells you the third one means he's survived a shipwreck. You raise an eyebrow. The sailor shrugs. Some men mark scars in ink, others in gold. And there it is again. That theme, survival, memory, identity. But there's another layer too, one that glints just beneath the surface. Wealth. Because let's face it, gold was gold. On a pirate ship, plundered treasures came in many forms: coins, jewels, bars of silver, bolts of silk. But unless you had pockets sewn into your breeches or a chest stashed below deck, how did you carry it? You wore it. Rings, chains, belts with hollow clasps, and yes, earrings. Small, valuable, portable, and hard to steal without someone noticing. You rub your thumb against your own earlobe, half imagining the weight. It's not just about superstition or style anymore. It's practical. A wearable savings account, an emergency fund drilled through flesh. Some even went a step further. Pirates who had gold teeth sometimes had them inscribed with tiny maps or numbers, a kind of cipher known only to them. Was this true? Perhaps in a few legendary cases. But it fits the pirate ethos. Don't just hoard your wealth, hide it in plain sight. You pass the helm and catch the eye of the boatswain, who nods. He's missing half an ear. No earring. You wonder, was it lost in battle or taken? There's a story there. There's always a story. And now, as the crew prepares to dock, ropes thrown, sails furled, you hear a tale passed from one sailor to t'other about a pirate who wore an earring made from the melted gold of a crucifix, a stolen relic, and how, according to legend, he was struck by lightning not a month later. Coincidence? Or divine retribution? The men laugh, but you notice they still touch their earrings afterward, just a quick brush like knocking on wood. Old habits die harder at sea. You step onto the dock now, boots echoing on the planks. The port bustles with sound, but you still notice other crews, other ships, more earrings, some large, some simple, all worn with purpose. You realize this wasn't just a pirate thing. It was a sailor thing, a global thing. From Mediterranean corsairs to Chinese junk captains, from Viking raiders to merchant navy men, pierced ears meant something, a connection to the sea, a challenge to fate, a kind of communion, sealed in gold. And sure, today we think of it as a costume detail, a Halloween afterthought. But once it was a declaration. I have sailed, I have risked, I have survived. You pause beside a tavern door. A carved figurehead glares down at you. Inside, laughter swells. Someone sings off-key. A sailor stumbles past, his earring catching the lantern light. And you realize this story isn't about fashion. It's about people trying to make sense of chaos, people facing storms and sirens, and imperial navies trying to hold on to something real, something small, something they could feel against their skin when everything else was falling apart. A loop of gold, worn not for vanity, but for memory, for magic, for meaning. You wander farther from the dock now, down a muddy lane that smells of fish and old beer, your steps falling into rhythm with the slap of waves on pilings. The town glows in lantern light. Sailors stagger home. Cats slink between barrels. And your earring, if you're still wearing one, feels heavier with everything it now means. But before we leave these streets and these stories, there's one more thing we need to talk about: the myths. Because where pirates roam, tales follow like barnacles. And earrings? They're right at the center of some of the strangest, most persistent ones. Take the idea that pirates wore gold earrings to pay for their burial, which we mentioned earlier. That wasn't just superstition. For many sailors, it was a pact with fate. If you died at sea or washed ashore nameless, your earring, valuable enough to cover funeral costs, was meant to be your silent insurance plan. Some men even had inscriptions etched into the metal, not names, but instructions. A crude, "Bury me deep," or "Say a prayer." Others included the port they considered home, in case their bodies ended up far from it. It's a grim thought, but one you understand here in the dark. The sea gives, but it also takes, fast, without warning, and sometimes there's no time for last words, only tokens left behind. Historians still debate whether these funeral earrings were common practice or rare exceptions. Some argue it was more of a romantic notion, another layer of pirate lore stitched together by storytellers, not sailors. Others point to records and recovered artifacts that suggest otherwise. Truth be told, like many things from the age of sail, it's hard to separate fact from fiction when both have been soaking in salt water for centuries. You pass a candlelit window now. Inside, an old man sits polishing what looks like a single gold hoop. He's alone? His hands are steady, and on the table beside him, a tattered journal. Maybe he was a sailor. Maybe that earring's seen more storms than most ships. Maybe it's all that's left of someone else. Because that's the other thing. Some earrings weren't worn for luck, or power, or memory. Some were worn for guilt. You hear it whispered in harbors. A pirate who lost his brother in a raid wears the earring he meant to give him. A man who survived a wreck that claimed his crewmates carries a hoop etched with the ship's name. Another wears a ring not of gold, but of blackened iron, rusted, sharp-edged, a self-imposed penance. And just when you think you heard every possible tale, someone leans in and adds another, like the one about sailors believing that piercing the ear improved eyesight. Yes, truly, it was said by some that the earlobe was connected to vision somehow, and that adorning it with metal would keep a lookout's eyes sharp. Was there any science behind it? Number, of course not. But when you're perched high in the crow's nest, with only your eyes and a spyglass to spot land or, worse, an enemy ship, maybe a bit of gold feels like insurance, or at least a placebo. Then again, maybe the truth is simpler. Maybe pirates just like shiny things. You smile at that, because underneath all the poetry, the rituals, the tragedy, there's still vanity. These men may have been outlaws, but they were also performers. The earring wasn't just armor, it was flair, and no pirate, no matter how grizzled, ever turned down a bit of flair. Even in portraits you see it. Engravings from the time show fierce faces framed with hoops and studs. Some look defiant, others oddly gentle. There's one sketch of a pirate with a massive ruby dangling from his ear. Historians are divided. Was it real? Was it a joke? Or was the artist simply romanticizing the look? We may never know, but centuries later, the image stuck. Ask anyone to draw a pirate, and they'll give you a sword, a parrot, a tricorn hat, and an earring. Always the earring. Because even if the reasons are muddled, protection, payment, mourning, memory, there's no denying it made its mark. You round a corner now, heading back toward the inn. The night has softened. The sea hushes against the shore. A fiddler plays somewhere near the docks, and you catch snippets of a shanty about a sailor who pierced his ear for every port he survived. You believe it because you've walked the decks. You've seen the rituals. You've heard the stories whispered over tankards and retold on creaking hammocks. And now, the glint of a simple hoop carries a different weight. Not just fashion, not just myth, but a story. A story of storms, superstition, salt, survival, and somewhere, maybe just a little style. You step inside your room. The candlelight flickers. You sit by the window, listening as the sea rocks the ships gently in their cradles. Outside, the stars blink through clouds like old eyes. And you wonder, if your life had been spent on the water, what would you wear in your ear? A coin from your first plunder? A ring melted from a lover's locket? Or maybe just a plain gold hoop, shining, simple, eternal, a promise to remember.